"Grandpa, my parents are going to take your money after the party today," whispered my 8-year-old granddaughter. Her words struck me like lightning, breaking the fragile illusion of family love. As a grandfather who had always trusted and supported them, I left the party early, masking my shock with the excuse of being tired. What I did afterward, however, a carefully planned response to their betrayal, would surprise everyone.
I turned the tables on them, and they would never forget it. Before we continue,
please subscribe to the channel and share where you're watching from in the comments. I know what you're thinking. "Dad, but just listen," Harry's voice cracked through the phone, cutting the stillness of a Saturday morning like a dull blade. I nearly dropped my coffee mug. Harry never called this early, especially not with that nervous tremor I hadn't heard since his teenage years, like the time he wrecked my truck. "What sounds so strange, son?" I asked, leaning back into my chair, watching steam rise from my coffee as sunlight spread across yesterday's unread newspaper. "Well, Mary really wants, actually, we both think, you should definitely come to Alexa's birthday party today." His words came too quickly, like he had rehearsed but lost the rhythm. A chill spread through me. Since when did they need to convince me to see my granddaughter? "Harry, when have I ever missed Alexa's birthday?" No, that's not what I meant." He hesitated. In the background, I could hear Mary's sharp, insistent tone. "It's just that Mary has been planning this for weeks, and she asked me to make sure you'll be there." I stirred my coffee slowly, cream swirling into small storms. Mary, the same Mary who usually treated me like an obligation at best, suddenly so thoughtful. "That's considerate of her. Yeah, she's really excited about it." Harry's laugh sounded forced, metallic. "The party starts at 2, but maybe you could come early. We wanted to talk about some family matters." The spoon clinked against the mug as I set it down. Family matters? In 3 years as a widower, family issues had never needed special conversations. What kind of matters? "Oh, planning. The future. Mary has some ideas about how we can all be more connected." I walked to the window, phone pressed to my ear, watching Mrs. Henderson water her flowers across the street. Mary with ideas about family connection. The same woman who spent last Christmas scrolling through her phone at the dinner table? "That sounds nice, Harry." My tone stayed calm, but my instincts from decades in business screamed otherwise. I'd seen too many people try to sell what they didn't believe in. "Great. So you'll come early, maybe around 1:30? I glanced at the refrigerator, where Alexa's crayon drawing hung beside my shopping list. A crooked house with stick figures labeled Grandpa, Daddy, Mommy, and me. Since Ellen passed, that little girl had been the brightest part of my life. Of course, I'll be there early. I wouldn't miss Alexa's birthday for anything. Perfect. "And Dad," Harry's voice lowered, "just keep an open mind about what we want to talk about, okay? It's about making sure everyone's taken care of." The line went dead before I could ask what he meant. I set the phone down next to my untouched newspaper. Something was off. Harry's voice carried the same guilty note I remembered from when he was 8 and had taken money from Ellen's purse for candy. Only this time it felt much bigger. I poured a fresh cup of coffee, trying to shake off the unease. Maybe Mary truly wanted to bring the family closer. Maybe I was reading too much into things. Still, the phrase stuck with me, making sure everyone's taken care of. From experience, I knew that usually meant someone was looking out for themselves first. I looked again at Alexa's drawing and smiled despite my worries. Whatever Harry and Mary wanted to discuss could wait until after my granddaughter's 8th birthday celebration. Some things mattered more than adult complications. Still, I reminded myself to pay close attention to whatever they wanted to discuss. 20 minutes later, I stood in my bedroom closet, staring at shirts Ellen would never see me wear again. The blue Oxford pulled me back to her funeral, to when Mary had whispered about all the space in the house as we buried my wife. Even then, there had been something calculating in her tone. I took the shirt off its hanger and caught my reflection in the mirror. $70,000, that's what I had given them over the past 3 years. Mortgage payments, car loans, Alexa's private school tuition. Ellen might have thought it was too much, but she also believed Alexa deserved opportunities beyond what her parents could provide. My wallet felt heavy as I dressed, stuffed with 3 maxed-out credit cards, Harry's emergencies, like the transmission repair that became a full engine rebuild, and Mary's short-term grocery requests that turned into a steady expectation. Each time Harry brought excuses laced with shame, while Mary added her carefully timed gratitude. On my way to the kitchen for my keys, I passed the refrigerator. Alexa's latest drawing hung beside my grocery list. She had sketched our last fishing trip, 2 stick figures by a blue crayon lake, both smiling. "Best day ever, Grandpa," written in purple marker at the bottom. That memory made Mary's recent suggestion echo louder. 3 weeks earlier, standing in the same kitchen, she had looked around and said, "Norman, don't you think this house is too big for you? There are wonderful assisted living communities where you wouldn't have to worry about upkeep." Harry quickly shifted the topic to Alexa's softball season. But Mary's eyes had stayed on the granite countertops and the high-end appliances Ellen and I had chosen together. It was the same calculating expression I had seen at the funeral. I picked up my car keys, recalling Ellen's last clear words. "Promise me you'll always take care of Alexa, but watch Harry carefully. He's weak, and weak people make dangerous choices when guided by stronger voices." At the time, I assumed she meant his drinking friends or reckless money schemes. Now, I wondered if she had seen something in Mary I had overlooked, the way she always tied money conversations to Alexa, making me feel selfish for even questioning the costs. The garage door rumbled open as morning light touched my Mercedes. Ellen's car still sat in her space, covered and spotless. I had kept up the payments for months after her passing, unwilling to accept she was gone. Maybe Harry and Mary counted on that same weakness, my unwillingness to refuse family, my tendency to trust rather than question. But after 40 years in construction, I knew foundations had to be checked before building anything lasting. I reversed slowly down the driveway, watching the house shrink in the rearview mirror. By tonight, after hearing what Harry and Mary had planned, I suspected nothing would look the same. For now, I needed to find a birthday present for my granddaughter. Something meaningful. Perhaps the last gift before everything shifted. Northtown Mall buzzed with weekend energy as I parked near the main entrance. At 8:15, families were already heading toward the toy stores. Perfect timing for Alexa's gifts. I went straight to the Lego architecture section. Since her field trip to the Space Needle, she had been fascinated by buildings. The Statue of Liberty set caught my attention, detailed enough to challenge her skills, but not overwhelming. $180 felt reasonable for something that could keep her curious mind engaged for weeks. "Excellent choice, sir," the young clerk said with a smile as he rang it up. "My daughter loves this series. Would you like it gift-wrapped? Please. It's for my granddaughter's 8th birthday, next with sporting goods." Alexa had told me she wanted a real bicycle, not the small pink one she had outgrown. A Trek model near the window looked perfect. Light frame, manageable handbrakes, reflective strips for safety. $320, but her joy would be worth it. I loaded the box into my SUV and checked the time. 9:10, enough room for one more stop. Norman. What a lovely surprise. Dorothy Henderson appeared beside my car, holding a shopping bag from the bookstore. My neighbor of 15 years looked genuinely pleased, her silver hair neat and polished despite the early morning. "Dorothy, good morning," I said. "Starting your weekend shopping early?"
"Oh, you know me."
"I prefer avoiding the weekend rush," she said, pointing toward the mall entrance. "But I imagine you're here for birthday shopping." "Harry mentioned Alexa's party when I saw him last week." "He did?" I asked, closing the SUV's hatch. "Where did you meet him?" "Downtown," Dorothy replied. "Tuesday morning, I believe." Mary was with him, and they were leaving First National Bank with a stack of documents. They looked very focused, probably refinancing or handling something financial, the way young families often do. Tuesday. Just 4 days ago. Harry hadn't mentioned banking during his anxious phone call earlier that morning. Then again, why would he? Not every financial matter needed to be shared. "Likely just routine business," I said, shifting the shopping bags. "Of course, dear. None of my business anyway." Dorothy patted my arm gently. "Well, I'll let you finish your errands. Give my love to your sweet granddaughter." She hurried off toward the bookstore, leaving me with a faint sense of unease. Banking on Tuesday, a nervous phone call on Saturday. The timing felt too close to ignore. Still, Harry was always caught in one financial complication or another. I pushed the thought aside and walked toward the florist near the east entrance. Mary always loved flowers, and white roses seemed like a fitting gesture for Alexa's party hostess. The florist, a middle-aged woman with soil under her nails, wrapped a dozen roses in silver paper with practiced ease. "These are beautiful," she said, tying the ribbon. "Special occasion. My granddaughter's birthday. They're for her mother. How thoughtful. She'll be delighted. $28 for flowers that would fade in days, but Mary's smile would make it worthwhile." Small acts like these kept peace in a family where tensions sometimes ran beneath the surface. By 9:30, the SUV was full, nearly $600 worth of birthday preparations. A bicycle, Lego set, roses, and a carefully chosen card, all meant to brighten Alexa's day. That's what grandfathers did, indulge their grandchildren happily. Driving home through the Saturday traffic, Dorothy's comment stayed with me. Harry and Mary at the bank, carrying documents, serious expressions, yet no mention of it from Harry. Of course, couples often managed things privately, insurance, refinancing, college savings for Alexa, perfectly reasonable explanations. Still, as I turned into the driveway, I couldn't shake the thought of Harry's nervous tone earlier. Was it truly just routine? After wrapping gifts and eating a quick lunch, I reached Harry's house right at 2:01. The door opened before I could ring. "Norman!" Mary greeted me warmly, her arms wide, as if we hadn't seen each other in months. "You look wonderful today." Her cheer surprised me. Normally, she offered a polite smile and brief hug before disappearing into preparations. But today she touched my arm, her eyes unusually bright. "Thank you, Mary. The party looks beautiful." I carried in the wrapped bicycle box and the Lego set. Decorations filled every doorway, balloons in each corner, far more elaborate than past birthdays. "Dad, there you are." Harry called from the living room, his voice louder than usual. "Come meet Mike from work." "Mike, this is my amazing father I've told you so much about." Amazing father. Harry typically described me in terms of my outdated habits or reluctance to retire. But now he clapped my shoulder, laughing too loudly in the decorated hallway. The living room buzzed, neighbors by the fireplace, Mrs. Smith on the couch, the Martinez family setting up games. "Grandpa!" Alexa ran to me, her smile pure and real. She hugged me tightly, and for a moment everything felt normal again. "Happy birthday, sweetheart." I handed her the gift bag. "This one first, then the big surprise." She carefully unwrapped the Lego set, her eyes widening at the Statue of Liberty on the box. But when she looked up, I caught a flicker of sadness before Mary stepped in. "Isn't Grandpa generous?" "Say thank you properly." "Thank you, Grandpa." "It's really cool." Alexa's words were sincere, but her tone carried something heavier. Guilt, maybe worry. Not what you'd expect from an 8-year-old at her own party. Harry pulled me toward the kitchen, where Mike Davidson sipped a beer. The conversation about car sales was ordinary enough, but Harry kept interrupting, praising my business wisdom and family leadership. Each compliment felt forced, like lines rehearsed for effect. "Norman knows everything about building trust and loyalty," Harry announced. "He's taught me so much. Trust and loyalty, odd subjects for a birthday conversation, especially spoken with such intensity." Mike nodded politely, clearly uneasy. Mary reappeared, offering a plate of appetizers. "Norman, you must try these canapes. I made them with you in mind." Her sudden attention caught me off guard. Mary had never shown interest in my food preferences, yet today she hovered nearby, topping off my glass before it was empty and checking on me repeatedly. From across the room, I watched Alexa opening cards from her classmates. Her movements looked polite but mechanical, distant rather than joyful. When Tommy Martinez asked about her new Lego set, she smiled and nodded at the right moments, but the excitement I expected was missing. "She's growing up so quickly," Mrs. Smith remarked as she sat beside me on the couch. "Such a thoughtful child. Just last week she asked me if grandparents and parents ever disagree on important decisions." My wine glass paused midway to my lips. "And what did you tell her?" "That families find their way through differences with honesty and love." Mrs. Smith kept her eyes on Alexa, concern flickering in her gaze, as though something heavier than ordinary childhood worries was troubling her. Across the room, Harry and Mary exchanged one of their quick glances. A flash of silent communication. I realized they had been doing it all afternoon. Small nods, brief eye contact, perfectly timed interruptions whenever conversations edged toward certain topics. The entire gathering carried an air of careful performance. Smiles seemed rehearsed, laughter too loud, gestures of affection staged. Only Alexa's moments with me felt real, though shaded by the weight she carried. As the party wound down and guests collected their things, Harry caught my eye with an overly casual wave. "Dad, stay after everyone leaves, okay? Mary and I have been looking forward to that family chat we mentioned." The cheerfulness felt oppressive, heavy like air before a storm. I excused myself politely, saying I needed the bathroom. Mary immediately stood to give me directions I didn't need, her eagerness rehearsed rather than genuine. As I stepped away, I noticed Alexa watching me from beside the gift table. Her face carried both worry and determination, enough to make me pause. In the hallway lined with family photos, I heard small footsteps behind me. "Grandpa." Her voice was barely a whisper. I turned to see her glance nervously back toward the living room, making sure no one followed. The birthday girl, who should have been glowing with joy, instead carried a weight far too heavy for an 8-year-old. "What is it, sweetheart?" I knelt to her level, recognizing the serious look she had inherited from Ellen. "You seem troubled." She bit her lip, a gesture that reminded me painfully of her grandmother in difficult moments. "I need to tell you something important about Mom and Dad." My chest tightened. "What about them, honey?" "They're planning to take your money tonight." The words tumbled out quickly, as though she had practiced them. "After everyone goes home." I heard them talking last night when I was supposed to be asleep. The hallway seemed to shift under me. I steadied myself on the doorframe, forcing calm for her sake. "What exactly did you hear?" "Mom said, 'You have too much money for an old man living alone.'" Alexa's voice dropped even lower. "She told Dad they were going to fix that problem tonight." Dad sounded worried, but Mom said the bank papers would make it all legal. Bank papers. Suddenly, Dorothy Henderson's comment about Tuesday's visit snapped into place. My old business instincts, dormant for years, roared back with sharp clarity. "Did they say anything else?" I asked gently, though my mind was racing ahead to places I wished she couldn't understand. Dad kept saying, "What if he finds out?" And Mom said it would be too late by then. Tears filled her eyes. "Grandpa, I don't want them to take your money. You're the only one who really listens to me." I hugged her tightly, her small body trembling against mine. Ellen's granddaughter, carrying secrets no child should. The betrayal cut deeper, knowing they had discussed this within earshot of innocent ears. "You did the right thing telling me," I whispered into her hair. "But we need to keep this our secret for now, okay?" "Can you do that?" She nodded. "Are you going to stop them?" "Yes, sweetheart. I'll take care of everything." I pulled back so she could see the certainty in my eyes. "But we need to return to the party now and act normal. Can you be brave for me?" "I think so." She wiped her nose with the back of her hand. "Will you still love me if Mom and Dad get mad?" Her question struck me like a blow. "Alexa, nothing your parents do will ever change how much I love you. Nothing. Do you understand?" Relief softened her face, followed by the first genuine smile I'd seen from her all afternoon. "I love you too, Grandpa." Hand in hand, we returned toward the party. But everything had changed in those whispered moments. The son I had raised, the daughter-in-law I had supported, the family I had trusted, now seen through the lens of calculated betrayal. When we rejoined the guests, Harry caught my eye across the room, smiling with that same false enthusiasm. Now I understood exactly what that performance was for. It felt like stepping back onto a stage where everyone else had forgotten they were acting. I leaned into conversation with practiced ease, 40. Years of business negotiations serving me well, while carefully observing Harry and Mary's every glance with new clarity. As Mrs. Smith spoke about her garden, I noticed Harry check his watch for the third time in 10 minutes. Mary appeared beside him instantly, their brief eye contact too deliberate to be chance. They were managing me, I realized, keeping me comfortable, distracted, and most importantly present for whatever they had planned. "Norman, how about some more wine?" Mary's hand brushed my arm with polished concern. "You look a little pale. Are you all right?" Pale, yes, I probably was. Learning your family means to take what you've built can do that. But I managed a tired smile. Just a slight headache. I'm fine. Her expression shifted subtly, relief mixed with calculation. A weary, distracted grandfather would be easier to manipulate than an alert one. For the next hour, I played my role flawlessly. The gracious grandfather, the generous family elder, the aging man perhaps not as sharp as he once was. I accepted their kindness, praised their hospitality, and observed their carefully coordinated behavior with the detached focus of someone studying an opponent's chess strategy. Harry kept steering conversations away from money. Whenever guests brought up the economy or retirement, Mary quickly redirected toward my home, my health, or future living plans. They were controlling the flow of information, ensuring nothing clashed with the story they had prepared for tonight's family meeting. By 5:30, as the afternoon shadows stretched and guests gathered their belongings, I announced my intention to leave. I think I should head home early. This headache isn't improving. The effect was instant. Harry and Mary exchanged a look of alarm. "Dad, wait!" Harry stepped in front of me. "We really wanted to talk about those family matters we mentioned. Remember? You promised to stay after everyone left." "Perhaps another time," I said, staying in character as the weary grandfather. "I need to rest." "But Norman," Mary's voice turned urgent as she moved closer. "We've been preparing something important for weeks." Their plan depended on my presence. Dorothy Henderson had seen the bank visit, and there were legal documents waiting. I could see their desperation as their careful timeline began to collapse. "I'm sure it can wait until tomorrow," I replied softly. "Family isn't going anywhere," Harry's face flushed. "Actually, Dad, these are time-sensitive issues. Financial matters that can't wait," I noted the phrase. "Another piece of information to file away with the rest of today's observations. Tomorrow, son. I promise." I turned to Alexa, who had been watching with worried eyes. Kneeling, I pulled her into what might be our last simple embrace before things changed. "Thank you for the most wonderful birthday party. Sweetheart, thank you for being here. Grandpa." Her small arms tightened around my neck. "I love you so much. I love you too. More than you'll ever know," I whispered, just for her. "Everything will be okay." As I stood, Harry placed a heavy hand on my shoulder, almost restraining. "Dad, please, just give us 1 hour." 1 hour to talk through these family decisions. I looked into his eyes and saw not the boy I had raised, but a man consumed by greed, leaving little room for love. The realization stung, but my voice stayed steady. "Another time, Harry. I need to go home now." Walking to my car, I felt their eyes on me. Mary whispering urgently in Harry's ear, both radiating frustration. The weight of my performance finally lifted. Sitting alone in my Mercedes, I processed what had just unfolded. My family had planned to strip me of everything tonight, using legal papers and false concern. Starting the engine, I drove away from what might be my last ordinary family gathering. Inside my home, the silence carried a new weight, no longer calm, but purposeful. I went straight to my office, the room where I had built my construction business from one truck and relentless effort. Behind Ellen's portrait, a safe held 40 years of documents. My fingers turned the lock. 1959, her birthday. It felt right that her memory still helped protect what we had built together. Inside were stories I had been too trusting to see. Bank records showing financial requests escalating from hundreds to thousands over 3 years. Investment portfolios worth more than Harry or Mary knew. Property deeds they had no idea existed. Most telling, records of every payment I had made for their lifestyle, 247 in total. I documented everything with the same methodical care that had built my business. Mortgage payments, car repairs, medical bills, Alexa's private school tuition, each explained by some emergency or opportunity that once seemed reasonable. With Ellen's photo watching from the shelf, I finally saw the truth. Their requests had been conditioning, training me to say yes to bigger amounts. Mary's talk about assisted living wasn't concern, it was groundwork for tonight's scheme. Every payment, every check, I said aloud to her picture. They've been planning this for months. On my desk, my phone sat silent. No doubt Harry and Mary were now scrambling, their plan collapsing without me. The thought brought a grim sense of relief. Reaching for my business card file, I found James Miller's personal number. 20 years of friendship and respect with the Vice President of First National Bank. James would remember me as the reliable contractor who never missed a payment or broke a promise. More importantly, I needed to know precisely what legal papers they'd obtained under false pretenses and what those documents actually allowed them to do. The clock read 9:30 p.m. too. Late for calls, so I made a note to handle it first thing in the morning. Find out exactly which documents Harry and Mary had and how to render them ineffective. Next, I went over my will and trust, routine documents that left everything to Harry with provisions for Alexa's education, written back when I believed my son cared for his family instead of our money. Those papers needed immediate revision. Over the years, Catherine Davis had notarized most of my legal forms, independent, discreet, with no ties to any bank where Harry or Mary might have influence. Another item for tomorrow. I spread my investment statements across the desk like plans, and for the first time in years, calculated my real net worth. $2.3 million in liquid assets. 3 rental properties, and this mortgage-free house, far more than Harry and Mary suspected, and certainly more than they could seize in one night through legal maneuvering. But this wasn't only about money. It was about justice for an 8-year-old girl whose parents were willing to expose her to adult secrets. It was about punishing adults who would exploit an old man's love. Ellen's voice from our last talk came back to me. Watch Harry carefully. Weak people make dangerous choices when someone stronger is whispering in their ear. I realized Mary had been whispering for 3 years, and Harry had chosen greed over family loyalty. My phone rang, Harry's name on the caller ID. I let it ring. Sunday morning brought the clarity a restless night hadn't. After finally sleeping near dawn, I woke in businessman mode with a concrete plan. Over coffee in my home office, I opened my contacts and dialed James Miller's personal number. 9 seemed right for a call to an old friend about finances. James and I had stayed close through 20 years of loans, investments, and the slow growth of price construction. He'd take my call seriously about portfolio matters. James, sorry to bother you on a Sunday. I've been reviewing my investments and want your thoughts on consolidating accounts. His warm reply made the call easy. What are current banking policies on financial assistance programs? I asked, steering toward what I needed. He outlined options and asked whether I meant automated services or full management help. Perfect. I eased into it. I've been wondering about power of attorney arrangements and conservatorship. Have you handled anything like that lately? He paused, mindful of confidentiality, then said a couple had just inquired about guardianship for an elderly relative. My coffee froze halfway to my lips. They'd clearly researched conservatorship requirements and timelines. Very thorough, he said. My son and daughter-in-law had learned exactly how to strip my independence with legal precision. They were asking about competency evaluations, documentation, court timelines, James explained. They seemed prepared, had medical opinions lined up and expected the process to move quickly. He laughed. Most families weren't so organized about elderly care transitions. The phrase tightened my grip on the phone. They'd planned how to institutionalize me while taking everything I'd built, and they'd done it systematically. I kept my voice steady. Did they seem confident? I asked. Absolutely, James replied. They'd discussed emergency conservatorship and expedited procedures to protect assets from alleged incompetence. Listening to professionals describe my possible fate in clinical banking terms was surreal. I thanked him. His information gave me a clearer picture, and he, in turn, complimented my sharpness and offered a formal consultation if I wanted one. After we hung up, I sat with my notes, competency evaluations, prepared documentation, medical opinions, emergency procedures. Harry and Mary hadn't simply planned to rob me. They'd constructed a complete legal framework to justify taking my life's work. The phone rang, pulling me from my thoughts. Harry's name flashed on the screen once more. This time, I picked up. Hello. My tone carried deliberate fatigue, as though even reaching for the phone required effort. Dad, thank goodness. I was worried when you left early yesterday. Harry's voice held a note of concern, though I now recognized the calculation beneath it. Are you feeling okay? Oh, Harry. I let my words trail, as if focusing had become difficult. I've been dealing with terrible headaches. It's hard to concentrate. That doesn't sound good. Maybe you should see a doctor. Mary and I could take you to the clinic this afternoon. Perfect. They were moving up their plan, just as I'd hoped. That's very kind of you, I replied softly. I've been feeling so confused lately. Don't worry, Dad, we'll take care of everything. We'll be there in an hour. After hanging up, I spent half an hour preparing for the role of a lifetime. I tousled my hair, put on an old cardigan that made me look frailer, and practiced slower, hesitant movements that suggested age and confusion. When their car pulled in, I was ready. Norman, we brought some papers that might help, Mary said as they settled in. She carried an expensive leather portfolio, the kind lawyers use for important documents. Papers? I asked, blinking with what I hoped looked like genuine confusion. What kind of papers? Harry leaned forward. Dad, we've been looking into ways to help you manage things better. Your finances, medical needs, that sort of thing. Manage? I rubbed my temples. Everything feels so complicated these days. Mary opened the folder with practiced ease. These documents would give us power of attorney. We could handle banking, bills, appointments. Think of it as a support system. The forms were professionally drafted, with highlighted areas ready for my signature. A serious investment for their scheme. It all feels so overwhelming, I murmured. I used to understand these things better. That's why we need to do this now, Mary urged. Before it gets harder for you, Harry shifted uneasily. Dad, are you sure you're okay? You seem different. I gave him a look of tired gratitude. Different? Not really. Just exhausted. These headaches cloud my mind. They exchanged a glance. The same silent coordination I'd noticed before. Now I knew its purpose. To gauge if I was confused enough to sign without question. Norman, this would just make things easier, Mary said gently. You wouldn't have to handle everything alone. That would be nice, I said slowly, picking up the papers with trembling hands. But it's a big decision. My head aches just trying to think it through. Of course it's important, Harry said quickly. Take your time. Mary's patience seemed thinner. Wouldn't it be easier with family help? You trust us, don't you? Of course you're family. I placed the papers down carefully. But could I think on it? Decide tomorrow when my head is clearer? Another look passed between them. Mary's frustration was just beneath her caring tone. Fine, Dad. We'll come back tomorrow morning. When they left, I let my body sink into the chair, finally dropping the act. The documents told the whole story. Power of attorney forms giving them full control over my finances, health, and living arrangements. Exactly as James had warned. 3 hours later, I was in my office, studying notes from their visit. The forms lay across my desk, every signature line highlighted, every requirement neatly marked. They'd done their homework, but I had 4 decades of experience on my side. Catherine Davis picked up on the second ring. Norman, good evening. What can I do for you? Catherine, I need notary services tomorrow morning for some family financial documents. Could you come around 10? Of course. What kind of documents? Power of attorney forms, I said carefully. It may be a sensitive family matter. I'd appreciate your discretion. You know you can count on that. I'll bring my seal and journal. Perfect. Catherine had notarized countless contracts for my construction business. She'd spot any signs of pressure or coercion. My next call was to James Miller. James, could you stop by tomorrow at 10? I've been thinking about our conversation and want to review my portfolio in detail. Certainly, Norman. After what we discussed about financial assistance, a thorough review makes sense. Excellent. It should be informative, James chuckled. I'll bring the paperwork. See you at 10. Educational indeed. James would witness everything Harry and Mary intended to do. And as a vice president at the bank, he would know exactly what was happening. More importantly, his presence would give legal weight to the documentation of their behavior. Final call. Harry, I said, letting my voice carry the same uncertainty I had performed earlier that afternoon. I've been thinking about those papers you brought. You were right. I do need help managing things. Dad, that's wonderful, Mary replied. She'll be so relieved. We can come over tomorrow morning. I've arranged for a notary to make everything official. 10 a.m. sharp, perfect. And Dad, thank you for trusting us. Trust. The word tasted bitter, though I managed to sound grateful. "You're my family. Of course I trust you." After hanging up, I looked out the window at Ellen's rose garden, another responsibility I had carried alone since her passing. Tomorrow would decide whether I continued caring for it as a free man, or watched it fade from the confines of an assisted living facility while Harry and Mary divided what Ellen and I had built. I pulled out a yellow legal pad and wrote the schedule I expected for the next day. 9:45 a.m. Catherine arrives. Prepares notary materials. 10:00 a.m. James arrives with portfolio papers. 10:05 a.m. Harry and Mary arrive. Expecting easy document signing. 10:10 a.m. Professional witnesses observe their manipulation. 15 a.m. Truth revealed. The irony wasn't lost on me. They had studied how to strip me of independence through legal procedures, yet overlooked one fact. Legal procedures demand proper witnesses and records. Tomorrow, those very rules would expose their betrayal. Across town, Harry was likely telling Mary how cooperative I sounded, how the notary would secure everything, and how close they were to controlling millions. They would celebrate tonight, convinced an old, confused man had finally surrendered. They didn't realize they were walking into a trap set by the same business, mine that built what they wanted to. Steal. I glanced at Alexa's drawing on the refrigerator, our stick-figure family standing beside a crooked house. Tomorrow would decide whether that little girl grew up with grandparents who defended her, or parents who showed her that family loyalty could be bought. Ellen's voice echoed from years ago. "Promise me you'll always take care of Alexa." I intended to keep that promise. Monday morning was gray and cold. Sleep had been scarce, but when Catherine arrived at 9:45 with her notary seal and journal, I felt ready. "Good morning, Norman." "Lovely office," she said, arranging her things. "This should be simple." At exactly 10, James knocked, portfolio in hand. "Morning, Norman." "Ready for that portfolio review?" "More ready than you know," I answered, moving behind my desk as footsteps sounded at the door. Harry and Mary entered, confident and smiling, carrying a leather case. Their smiles wavered slightly at the sight of Catherine and James, but Mary recovered quickly. "How thoughtful of you to arrange professional assistance," she said smoothly. "This will make everything so official." "Indeed it will," I replied, my voice firm and clear. "Please, everyone, take a seat." Harry sat across from me, still smiling. "Dad, you sound much better today. More like yourself. Exactly like my old self. Sharp, observant, capable." I leaned forward, locking eyes with him. "Which is why I need to tell you something before we sign anything." Mary froze mid-checklist. "Norman, what's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong with me, Mary, but I'm fully aware of your plan." The silence was heavy. Harry's smile slipped. "Dad, what plan?" "We're here to help you. I know about your visit to James's bank last Tuesday. I know about the guardianship process you researched. I know about the competency evaluations you plan to arrange." Harry's face went pale. Mary's carefully practiced composure cracked for just a moment before she tried to recover. "Norman, you're mistaken. We went to the bank for our own planning, James," I interrupted, turning to him. "Would you share what they discussed during their appointment?" James cleared his throat. "They asked specific questions about conservatorship procedures, requirements for declaring someone incompetent, and expedited court processes for financial control." Catherine looked up from her journal, suddenly alert. "Mr. Price, are you saying these power of attorney documents were prepared under false pretenses?" "I'm saying they planned to declare me incompetent and take everything I spent 40 years building." Harry finally spoke, his voice strained. "Dad, we were worried about you. Yesterday you seemed uncertain. Yesterday I played along. Today you're seeing the real me." I opened my desk drawer and pulled out the records I had carefully prepared. 3 years, 247 transactions, $70,000 in support payments, every mortgage installment, car repair, and private school tuition documented. Mary leaned closer, her voice unsteady. These were normal family expenses, she argued, small conditioning steps that trained me to keep saying yes, until I finally agreed to give up my independence. I looked directly at her. "You researched how to have me declared incompetent while dividing my assets." Catherine placed her pen down. This is highly irregular, she said. I need to understand everything before I notarize. The full situation, I explained, is that my son and daughter-in-law spent weeks studying guardianship laws, consulted attorneys, and prepared false claims of mental confusion so they could seize my estate. Harry's hands trembled on the armrests. We only thought you might need help managing things. Help with managing a $2.3 million net worth plus 3 rental properties? My tone hardened. Help that required researching emergency conservatorship procedures? Mary jumped up. You're twisting this. We love you. Love doesn't involve plotting to take away someone's freedom, Mary. Love doesn't involve planning how to steal from a healthy, capable man. James spoke softly. Norman, their questions were too precise. They knew legal language most families never learn unless they're planning something deliberate. Catherine nodded. In my experience, true family planning never requires research into competency evaluations. The room fell silent except for Harry's heavy breathing. For a moment, he looked at me as though recognizing the man who built the fortune they tried to claim. What happens now? He whispered. I rose slowly, carrying both my age and the weight of my hard-earned wisdom. Now we talk about consequences. Consequences, he repeated. I opened my drawer again, pulling out documents I had prepared over the weekend. I'm changing my will today. My estate will go into an educational trust for Alexa, available when she turns 21. Harry leaned forward, desperate. Dad, please. We made mistakes, but we can fix this. The trust will cover her college education, graduate studies if she chooses, and seed money for a career path. I spread the new will across my desk. Catherine, I need these witnessed and notarized. Mary's voice cracked. Norman, you can't do this to your own family. I'm protecting my family, I replied firmly. Protecting Alexa from parents who tried to take away her grandfather's independence for money. Catherine examined the documents carefully. These terms are very specific, she noted. There are conditions, yes. If Harry and Mary renounce all claims to my estate and show genuine change over the next year, I'll reconsider. But they must prove they've become the parents Alexa deserves. James signed as witness. This trust is excellent, he said. She'll have every opportunity you never had the chance to give directly. Harry buried his face in his hands. What does genuine change mean? By earning a living instead of relying on me. By putting Alexa's happiness before your own desires. By proving she matters more than money. Mary broke down. How are we supposed to live without your support? The same way millions of families do. Honest work and responsible choices. The mortgage help ends today. The car payments stop now. You're both educated adults. Figure it out. Catherine notarized the documents with practiced ease. Everything is binding now, Mr. Price. My lawyer will have copies by afternoon, I assured her. After Catherine and James left, silence filled the room. Harry looked defeated. Mary seemed to be calculating her next move. Is there anything else you want to say? I asked. Harry finally met my eyes. I'm sorry, Dad. I know it doesn't undo the harm, but I truly am sorry. Mary said nothing, and that silence told me everything. Words are cheap, Harry. Actions over the next year will decide if this family has a future. 3 hours later, Alexa knocked on my door, her backpack still on. Grandpa, Mommy said you wanted to see me. I knelt to her level. Sit with me, sweetheart. We need to talk about grown-up matters. She sat beside me, already sensing the seriousness. Is this about what I told you? Partly. Your parents made some poor choices with money. There must be consequences, but nothing changes how much I love you. Are they in trouble?
They need to learn responsibility for themselves and for you.
But your future is safe. I've made arrangements so you can study anything you want, at any school. Her eyes brightened. Even veterinary school? That's so expensive, especially veterinary school, I smiled. And if you change your mind, engineer, teacher, business owner, the support will be there. What about Mommy and Daddy? They'll have to work very hard to become better parents. If they succeed, maybe our family will heal. If not, you and I will always have each other. She hugged me tightly, and I felt Ellen's presence in that embrace. 3 generations bound by love despite betrayal. Can we look at college brochures? Alexa asked. I want to see veterinary schools, of course. I smiled, opening my laptop. We have all the time in the world to plan your future. Outside, spring turned to summer, and Ellen's roses began to bloom. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. To watch the next story, click the box on the left. Thank you for watching.